So, what is called the occult horror? Hello, everyone. My name is Aldiar Tugton, and today I'll be presenting my research paper titled What is Called Occult Horror. This presentation was completed for the occult horror class I'm taking right now at BU. Throughout history, people from almost every civilization have believed in supernatural forces, whether those were ghosts, demons, witches, or jinns, or other mysterious beings. Even though these cultures were separated by geography, religion, and time, they all created stories that explore similar fears. That made me wonder why occult horror appears so consistently across different societies. In my research, I examined literature, films, folklore, and religion, as well with art, to show that occult horror is much more than entertainment. It reflects our deepest fears, our curiosity, and many more things. So the research question I asked, the main question I wanted to answer was why does occult horror appear in so many different cultures? Why do people continue telling stories about witches, demons, ghosts, or supernatural creatures even after centuries of scientific progress? My main argument was that occult horror exists because humans naturally fear things they cannot explain. Throughout history, people have always searched for answers about life, death, and afterlife, and hidden powers. Whenever something could not be explained through logic or science, supernatural explanations often filled that gap. Although every culture developed its own beliefs, they all address similar human concerns. Western traditions often focus on Satan, witchcraft, and haunted places, while Islamic traditions emphasize jinn, seer, and unseen world known as al-ghayb. Even though these beliefs are different, they all explore humanity's curiosity about what exists beyond ordinary human understanding. Before comparing different cultures, it is important to define what horror and occult actually mean. Horror is much more than simply being frightened. Good horror creates suspense, uncertainty, mystery, and psychological tension. As philosopher Noel Carroll explained, horror is designed to create a specific emotional response in its audience. Instead of simply showing violence, it makes us question what is real and what is possible. The occult refers to a hidden or secret knowledge that exists beyond ordinary human understanding. This includes practices such as magic, divination, spirit communication, grimoires, and rituals. Historically, many people believed that these practices could reveal truths about supernatural forces. When horror combines with occult ideas, we get stories where fear comes from mysterious knowledge or forbidden practices or encounters forces that humans cannot fully understand. Rather than relying only on monsters or violence, occult horror focuses on uncertainty and the fear of unknown. To understand Western occult horror, I analyzed three important literary works. The first is Nathaniel Hawthorne's Young Goodman Brown. In this story, Goodman Brown enters a mysterious forest and witnesses what appears to be a satanic ritual. Whether the event is real or imagined is never fully explained, which makes the psychological uncertainty even more disturbing. The true horror comes from Brown losing his trust in both his community and his own beliefs. The second work is Edward Bulwer Lytton's The House in the Brain. Instead of using graphic violence, the story creates a fear through atmosphere, strange sounds, unexplained events, and a haunted house. The narrator begins as a skeptic but slowly realizes that logic cannot explain everything he experiences. Well, the final example is Arthur Macon's The Greater God Pan, which explores humanity's desire to obtain forbidden knowledge. A scientific experiment attempts to reveal realities beyond our perception, but instead it causes tragedy and psychological destruction. The story demonstrates how curiosity itself can become dangerous when humans try to discover knowledge that may be beyond their limits. Together, these works show that Western occult horror often focuses on hidden evil, psychological fear, and the consequences of seeking forbidden knowledge. While Islamic occult horror traditions approach supernatural fear from a different perspective. Instead of focusing on Satan, witches, Islamic teachings actually describe beings known as jinn, who are intelligent creatures created by God. Islam also recognizes sihr, or magic, but it considers it a forbidden practice because it involves seeking supernatural powers through unlawful means. Another important concept is al-ghayb, which refers to the unseen world. Islam and that teaches that not everything can or should be understood by humans, and some knowledge belongs only to Allah. Because of this, attempting to communicate with supernatural beings or practice forbidden magic is viewed as spiritually dangerous. Although Islamic occult traditions differ from Western Christianity, both traditions emphasize that interacting with supernatural forces can have serious consequences. Both warn against seeking hidden human knowledge that lies beyond human understanding. Well, I also compared two films that represent different religious and cultural traditions. The film is The Witch, directed by Robert Eggers. Set in the 17th century Puritan New England, the film explored the themes of witchcraft, religious fear, temptation, and Satan. As fear and paranoia increases within family, they begin interpreting ordinary events as sign of demonic influence, eventually leading them to a tragedy. The second film that I watched was The Blue Elephant 2, an Egyptian film that explores Islamic occult beliefs. Instead of witches, the story focuses on jinn, possession, black magic, and spiritual healing. Supernatural events are understood through Islamic beliefs rather than Christian ones. Despite their cultural differences, both films create horror in similar ways. They present supernatural forces that humans cannot fully understand and show how fear can slowly destroy trust, reason, and morality. Well, I also went over traditional witchcraft and chose some stories from my home country. So, traditional witchcraft, has existed in Europe throughout history. During that time, many people believed witches had supernatural abilities by making agreements with the devil. These beliefs, however, often contributed to fear, suspicion, and eventually led to events such as the Salem witch trials, where a lot of innocents were executed. I also wanted to include an example from my own culture in Kazakhstan. One of the best known figures is Jalmais Kimper, an old witch like woman who appears in Kazakh folklore. She's described as, a very cunning, deceptive, and dangerous, often tricking children or travelers. Although she differs from European witches or Islamic jinn, she serves as a similar purpose by representing society's fears of the unknown. Including this example helped me to show how occult horror is not only limited to one religion or one region of the world. Every culture created supernatural figures to explain fear, danger, and uncertainty. Occult horror is not only expressed through literature and film, it also appears in visual art. One of the most famous examples is Francisco Goya's painting Witch's Sabbath. The painting shows a gathering of witches surrounding a large black goat, which often represents a Satan. The dark colors, unsettling expressions, and secret ritual create a disturbing atmosphere even without showing any violence. What makes this artwork so effective is that it relies on symbolism and psychology rather than action. The viewer immediately feels that something forbidden is taking place. The painting also connects with many of the ideas discussed earlier, including witchcraft, hidden rituals, temptation, and fear of supernatural power. It demonstrates that artists, just like writers and filmmakers, have long explored humanity's fascination with occult horror. Well, now the key takeaways. Looking across all these examples, a clear pattern begins to appear. Humans experience fear. Fear creates curiosity. Curiosity encourages people to seek hidden knowledge. That search for forbidden knowledge becomes the foundation of occult horror. Whether we are reading 19th century literature, watching modern films, studying Islamic beliefs, or examining Kazakh folklore, the same themes continue appearing again and again. Different cultures may explain supernatural forces differently, but they all explore similar emotions such as uncertainty, temptation, mystery, and fear. This explains why occult horror has remained popular for centuries and continues to attract audiences today. In conclusion, my research demonstrates that occult horror is much more than stories about ghosts or monsters. It represents humanity's ongoing attempt to understand questions that have existed throughout history. Questions about life, death, morality, hidden knowledge, and whether supernatural forces exist to continue to fascinate people today. Ultimately, the greatest source of horror is not necessarily the monster itself. Instead, it is humanity's fear of what we cannot explain and our endless curiosity about what lies beyond human understanding. Well, thank you so much for listening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.